Mario 64 is filled with a lot of extremely memorable and unique level themes. Tick-Tock Clock takes place within a giant clock, Tiny Huge Island lets you swap between a small and big level layout, and so on. However, seeing as this was the first 3D Mario game, they may have just duplicated a few themes. One of the two repeated level themes that stand out in my mind is the snow theme with Cool Cool Mountain and Snowman's Land. Hope you're fine with the cold. And the other repeated theme is the water theme. Yay. This is seen in Jolly Roger Bay and Dire Docks, and let's just say both of these levels are not great. So with these shared level themes, I thought it'd be kind of fun to do an episode comparing the two levels within the snow theme or within the water theme, but which one to choose? Well, I decided to leave that up to a YouTube poll. Of course, you guys pick the levels that suck. Welcome to another episode of Level by Level. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at both Jolly Roger Bay and Dire Docks to see how they compare against each other and if they're different enough to justify both of their existences. We'll be doing this in the same format as the Rainbow Ride episode. First, we'll take a look at their aesthetics, then their layouts, and we'll end with a tier list of all 14 stars between the courses. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's jump right in. I'm not even going to mention wanting to make shorter videos so I can work on the 200k special anymore. I don't think I'm capable. Alright, so starting off, how do these levels differ in terms of aesthetic? Believe it or not, we're starting this analysis fairly positively because I can actually say they do a pretty good job making them distinct. At the very least, they're more different than the snow levels. I mean, I guess Snowman's Land has an igloo. That's cool. You think there's someone trapped in the basement like in Minecraft one? First, let's start with the aesthetic element both of the levels share, being the song. This is one of the most iconic tracks in the Mario series, and probably the single most iconic water theme. I'm not very good at talking about why I like certain songs. Most of the time I just say, oh yeah, that's a banger. But I think I just really like the mix of relaxing and somewhat mysterious vibes here. I think it's perfectly fitting for a water setting, so I have absolutely no problem with its reuse between these levels. And I guess the Secret Aquarium, but who cares? But now the question becomes, which of these levels do I think the song fits better for? In order to answer that though, I think we need to take a look at each stage individually. Jolly Roger Bay is a fairly unique spin on the water level for the series, as it's actually a pretty eerie level. I think the closest comparison before Mario 64 would be Mario World's Haunted Ship level. First entering into the stage, there's a very creepy fog covering it, and even once you manage to get rid of it, Jolly Roger Bay still has a bit of spookiness to it. The color scheme is quite dark, especially with the sky and dark mountains enclosing the stage. That's continued even once you dip under the water, where the level has a sort of greenish filter over everything just to add to the eerie atmosphere. The bottom of the water also has plenty to add to this too. There's an eel always hiding around the bottom, which many claim to be the scariest enemy in the game. Not only does it act as an obstacle for a few stars, but I think aesthetically it fits fantastically. There's also, of course, the iconic sunken ship. By itself, a ship being sunk at the bottom of the water is quite creepy, but I'd say it also adds a lot once you manage to raise it out of the water too. The look of the ship is so dark, and with no signs of its previous occupants, it feels haunted even without any explicit ghost shown inside or out of the ship. The last thing I want to mention for the aesthetic is the underwater cave. It adds another somewhat creepy area that's completely distinct from everything else in the level. Now as for Dire Docks, this is comparatively much less unsettling. Right away, you could tell that just by looking at the water. There's no more green hue here, so it feels as though this area is a bit more pleasant with its bluer colors. That's expanded on by the fact that the sea creatures we see here are nowhere near as creepy as Jolly Roger Bay's Unagi eel. I mean, unless you're absolutely horrified by sharks. Now this all just pertains to within the main water itself, but there's a bit more to Dire Docks if you decide to go through this tunnel. The tunnel is very clearly man-made, and that works perfectly into the more mechanical second half. This is a pretty interesting take on the water concept. All of the walls around this place are made out of metal, and this is meant to represent a hidden base to hide Bowser's submarine. And wouldn't you know it, that also appears here. Now unfortunately, it is only for the first star, which does make the level feel a bit empty afterwards, but when it's here, it is pretty nice. I'd definitely say of the two vehicles, the Jolly Roger ship is my favorite, but the submarine is cool too. So overall, both these levels have quite the different aesthetic idea, despite both being water stages. Jolly Roger Bay is more natural and creepy, whereas Dire Docks is a lot more focused on man-made creations. So aesthetic-wise, I think both justify their separate existences. If I were to choose which I prefer though, I think I'd go with Jolly Roger Bay. The unsettling vibe is just really cool. Without the sub, Dire Docks can feel somewhat empty, which really does lose some points. That also means I think the song fits Jolly Roger Bay a bit more, but like I said, I think it works well for both levels. But now it's time for each of these levels' layouts, and sadly, this is where things start to fall apart. These two levels are often considered some of, if not the worst in the game. Personally, I think that crown goes to Rainbow Ride, but yeah, these two are not great. Aesthetic-wise, they're strong, but the layout and stars really kill these guys. First things first, these are both water levels. In almost every Mario game, except for the two most recent being Odyssey and Wonder, the water controls are just not fun. Mario feels so much slower to control, and the reason most people play these games is to run and jump around, not swim slowly. Granted, these aren't the worst water controls in the series, but I would definitely prefer to avoid water as much as possible. Also, just because I'm not going to be able to mention this anywhere else, literally what is the point of the Koopa shells here? They're hidden inside a clam in each level, and picking it up lets you move slightly faster. For a limited time. These never feel good to use at all, and they're so far out of the way that the minuscule speed increase is just not worth it. The fact that we have to swim is also not helped by the fact that both of these levels have a lot of it. Compared to most other levels in this game, these are honestly extremely linear. Jolly Roger Bay has you start at the very back of the stage, and the entire level is contained within a small straight line forward, with a tiny bend. Now granted, this only looks small from the surface because this level is much more focused on verticality, but that doesn't make the movement any more exciting. Due to how deep the water goes here, you have to swim for a while to get to anything interesting, and while that does add to the eerie vibe, it doesn't feel good gameplay wise. The problem was made even worse in Dire Docks. It's also laid out in a mostly straight line, but this time they don't even let you start on land as Mario was instantly chucked into water. This level is divided into two parts, a small natural area with sea creatures and a few stars, and then the larger submarine area. To get between them, you have to go through a tunnel, and this thing is stupid long. It entirely drags down the level for me as every star on this half forces you to swim through this extremely long and boring tunnel. I also just can't say I love how open the sub area is. I get it had to be that way for the sub to fit, but it just feels so empty. At least Jolly Roger Bay was so confined that it felt like there was stuff here, but with Dire Docks' shallower and much wider water pool, it feels incredibly empty. So yeah, not really a fan of either of these levels layout wise. They don't feel fun to explore because they're both extremely linear and they force Mario to swim through a lot of the course. I definitely like Jolly Roger Bay far more though for not having an obnoxiously large tunnel and at least allowing us to run around a little bit before dipping into the water. But now I think it's time for our star tier list. Due to covering 2 levels this time, the text on the stars themselves will be color-coded. Green will be Jolly Roger Bay, and blue will be Dire Docks. So let's kick us off with Jolly Roger Bay's star number 1, Plunder in the Sunken Ship. This deals with the level's iconic ship, and it's how we get it to rise up from the depths of the sea. So by jumping into the water, you then have to swim forward until you reach the ship. Uh-oh, eel. In order to get inside, you need to go through the window that's currently occupied by the Unagi. So now you need to find some sort of way to drag him out, and this is probably the main part of the star I don't like. No matter what you try, it'll seem like this guy just can't leave his new home, even if you swim directly in front of his face. The only way to get him to leave is to go in front of him, and then you leave the area, swim back, and then he'll be out of the ship. That is so incredibly stupid. At least the drowning mechanic would force you to leave eventually, but seriously, they should have had the eel leave the ship in front of the player. It's sad because I did really like the idea of having Unagi block the entrance, but whatever I guess. Once you get inside the ship, you then have to solve a puzzle. It's just a guess and check minigame where you have to open the chests in the right order. I don't hate it though, just because it's not long and the chests do fit the sunken pirate ship extremely well. Getting the correct order drains the ship of its water, which is meant to represent it going back to the surface, and then you can climb up and get the star. Overall, I think this star has a lot of good ideas, but the execution is just a bit off. Getting to go inside the ship is really cool, and the fact that it permanently alters the level is a neat touch, but yeah, the Unagi eel part really could have been done better. I'll throw this into B tier, an okay start for the level. Star number 2, Can the Eel Come Out to Play? This is one of the game's most iconic stars due to how many children it gave nightmares to. For this, you have to swim back around to where the ship was, but instead go over to the eel's new domain, being this little hole in the wall. To get the star, you have to try and get the eel to come out. Now hearing that, you may think I wouldn't like this for the same reasons I dislike the eel on the first star, but no, they actually animated him coming out of the hole here. So now this star is a lot better since you can actually go up to the eel and have him leave. The eel also reaches out of the tunnel quite far, so if you aren't paying attention, it's easy to get hit. Once the eel leaves, you see that the star is attached to the eel's tail. That leads to a pretty fun chase where you have to try and grab it without getting smacked by the tail or drowning. Once you do touch it, the star flies back to the cave and you can collect it. Overall, I really enjoy this star both in concept and execution. Maybe sometimes it can be a bit annoying waiting for the eel and the star hitbox is a bit wonky, but otherwise I think this star earns how iconic it is. I'll be putting it up in A tier. Not quite an S because it's in water, but still certainly a great star. Star number 3, Treasure of the Ocean Cave. As the name suggests, this takes us down into the cave at the bottom of the sea. Like the other 2 stars, you have to swim all the way to the back, which I must say is getting kinda tedious at this point. But once you get down there, you then must enter inside this hole in the wall. In this cave, you have to avoid a few Goombas and falling pillars. When you reach the other end, you'll see 4 treasure chests, and just like the ones in the ship, you have to get them in the right order. I was already not a huge fan of this, so having to do it again is kinda lame. I will say though, on repeat playthroughs, it is really satisfying to run between the chests quickly. If you get it in the right order, you're then rewarded with the star. I think this is alright. They probably should have put something more interesting in this cave, but for what it is, I'll give it a C tier. Star number 4, Red Coins on the Ship Afloat. Just like every other level in the game, Jolly Roger Bay has itself a red coin star. For these, you have to collect 8 red coins scattered throughout the level. Some red coin stars require you to look in one concentrated spot, while others have the 8 red coins spread throughout the stage, and Jolly Roger Bay falls into the latter category. Generally, I prefer this approach just because it encourages exploration. As for where these coins are, 4 are in the water and 4 are on the surface. The water ones are hidden within clams, which I think works well as it gives you a reason to get close and possibly get hit. Because a Koopa shell sure isn't a good reason. Then we get to look on the surface for the other half of the coins, which is nice since none of the stars up until this point have required us to run up here. For the first one, you have to climb a rock pillar, which is also next to the level's pink bomb, so you might as well get it while you're here. The other 3 coins are all on the ship, and yeah, maybe a bit lame for them to all be concentrated on one spot like this, but I also like the ship, and it's cool how its usage in the level changes over time. The ship will rock back and forth, so you have to time your jumps accordingly to get the remaining coins. But be careful, there's a box! Woo! So yeah, I'd say this is a solid red coin star. I'll put it right above star 1 in B tier. Star number 5, Blast of the Stone Pillar. Remember that cannon I had you all open in the last star? Well, this is where it comes in handy. The blast in the title obviously refers to the cannon, and it's pretty clear that the stone pillars are the ones that are right in front of you. So all you have to do is aim at the pillar and grab on. one. Once you do, there's a platform hidden to the left which has the star. Honestly, this one is pretty weak. It's not that interesting and it ends after like 3 seconds. The only mildly fun part about this star is trying to land on the platform without the stone pillar, but really even that's not too cool. I don't hate this star though, so it can go into C tier. Star number 6, through the jet stream. When you lifted the ship and returned to it afterward, you may have noticed a new star in its place. While it may seem out in the open, there's actually a harsh jet stream here which prevents you from just swimming in and oh. Yeah, so this star is just completely cheesable. Like, it's not even a complicated speedrun trick, you just swim forward to the star and you get it. You're supposed to use the metal cap found in the cave to resist the jet stream, but yeah, you don't have to. Honestly, this might just belong in F tier. I don't hate it or anything, but it is completely worthless. Plus, it makes you take the long swim back to the bottom. Star number 7, 100 coins. Like I said in the Rainbow Ride video, these are always hard to judge because how the player chooses to collect 100 coins will be different for everyone. Except I kinda lied. See, Jolly Roger Bay has the least amount of coins out of any stage in the entire game with only 104. For comparison, Rainbow Ride had 146, which means you have to go everywhere here. I'm personally not a huge fan of that. I really like when the star type actually gives you options. What's also concerning is that 30 of these coins are tied to a blue coin switch in the cave. Missing even one of these coins will result in the star becoming entirely impossible. Now granted, the blue coins are very easy, and if you miss one, you probably don't deserve the star, but I still think that's kind of a problem. Plus, you could also look at it like 30 coins require literally running in a straight line, which is almost a third of the coins you are guaranteed to collect for this star. Plus, add on that swimming into every nook and cranny is just not that fun, and I think this 100 coin star deserves to be at the bottom of C tier. I'm really close to putting an F tier on it, but let's just say it can get so much worse. Now that we've got Jolly Roger Bay out of the way, it's time we jump into our stars from Dire Dire Docks to see how they stack up. Star number 1, Board Bowser Sub. This star is incredibly interesting as it's the only required star to get in the entire game. Unless you're a dirty cheater, I bet Miyamoto's crying right now. The reason it's required is because you have to collect it in order to enter Bowser in the Fire Sea. So did they make the one star that 100% of 70 star playthroughs will collect fun? Meh. So like I said in the layout section, you're dropped right into the water from the start and have to swim over to the section with the sub. That requires a long trek through this underwater tunnel that's simply just not fun to go through. As you move up and down, and while I guess you could say there's a risk of drowning, the top of the tunnel has air, so there's really no challenge to be found here. It just acts as an unnecessary time sink. Luckily, once you get to the other side, the star does get a bit better. The submarine is right in the middle, so you have to try to find a way onto it. I like that there are many approaches that you can take to get on board. I think it makes the star a lot more interesting. The main way players will likely go about this is by first going onto land and hitting a switch to spawn in boxes that temporarily make a bridge. However, you don't have to go on land. The fins of the submarine are in the water, so you can actually climb onto them and then make a bit of a trickier jump onto the sub from there. You can also climb up the front of the sub, but this is very challenging due to the harsh slope, so this is really only reserved for speedrunners. So yeah, the star had a bit of a rough start, but I think I did enjoy boarding the sub itself. I'll give it a low B tier, very close to a C, but it being as iconic as it is, I think it can move up a smidge. Star number 2, Chests in the Current. As the name suggests, this is our third chest star of the video, but it's probably the most interesting challenge of the bunch. Luckily, this is in the first section, so we don't have to go through the long tunnel swim. At the bottom, there are 4 chests orbiting a whirlpool. If you get sucked in, that's pretty much an instant death as you get flushed out, so you have to try and get the correct chest combination while actively getting sucked in by the whirlpool. That can get fairly intense, and I think it's a decent spin on the concept. Get it? I said spin. I still don't love the chest gimmick, but I do think this is probably the best way they did it in this game. I'll put it in B tier above the Jolly Roger Bay ship. Star number 3, pole jumping for 8 red coins. In comparison to the red coin star in Jolly Roger Bay, Dire Dire Docks has all of its red coins focused in one area, being the ceiling of the sub room. Unfortunately, that means to start this star, we have to go through the long tunnel swim. Yay. Now, a long time ago, I made a video ranking all the red coin stars, and this one happened to get last place among the main levels. The reason that is because there's just a lot of waiting around here. You have to jump across the moving poles to get to each red coin, but they take so long to move around. So combined with the long tunnel swim, we have a long section of just waiting for poles to move for Mario to collect the red coins. It's not even hard, the challenge here purely comes down to patience. Oh, and you really don't want to fall down, as that will force you to swim back to land and wait for the poles all over again. Now with that being said, you can theoretically skip the poles. 120 star speedruns have been doing this for years now. You have to still have the sub there though, and it takes an incredible amount of practice that's just not worth it. I will say that at least watching this star in context of a speedrun is cool, but that's all I can give this. I'm putting it down at the bottom of C tier. Star number 4, through the jet stream. Wait, what? Didn't we already talk about this star in Jolly Roger Bay? Well, as it turns out, they were too lazy to come up with a new name, making these 2 stars the only ones in a main level to share the same name. I can't say this name is unfitting though, as it's basically the exact same thing as it was in Jolly Roger Bay. In the submarine area, there's another jet stream, which again means wasting a minute swimming over. Once you get there, you may notice that there's actually no star in it this time. Instead, there are these blue rings coming out of the jet stream, and if you go inside, a number appears. If you continue swimming through 5 in a row, then a star will spawn in. But also, since this is on top of the jet stream, this basically doesn't change the gameplay of swimming down at all. You still have absolutely no reason to grab the required metal cap. Yeah, this obviously belongs right next to the other one in F tier. I'm putting this one below because at least Jolly Roger Bay doesn't have a long tunnel to go through. Star number 5, the Manta Ray's Reward. This is kind of what the last star was trying to do, but if it was actually a bit interesting. Luckily, the Manta Ray is clearly in view right as we drop in, so no tunnel for us. Behind it are more of the blue rings we saw from the last star, so once again we have to swim through 5 of them. This time it's much more challenging though, as the Manta Ray doesn't just move in a straight line, so you have to try and follow its movements as closely as possible. There are also enemies you have to watch out for, though to be completely honest, the shark does basically nothing, and I entirely forgot normal Cheeps are even in this game. I do like this idea quite a bit though, and it makes swimming a bit more interesting. I will say the rings can be a bit finicky. It's kinda hard to tell when it counts Mario going through. I'm not really entirely sure what the problem is, maybe it's just a skill issue, but I always seem to miss at least one ring that I swear I went through. Once you actually do get the 5th ring, the star is placed above the whirlpool, which I think is cute to add one last scary bit for the ending. Overall, I think the idea here is pretty good, so I'm gonna put it up in B tier. Not bad. Star number 6, collect the caps. Tunnel, yay. At the bottom of the submarine area, there's a star that's fenced off from everything else, so you have to try to find some way to get inside. Luckily, this level provides 2 caps next to the ship, the metal cap and invisibility cap. As the name says, you'll actually have to collect both of these at the same time in order to get the star, which is a really cool idea that I honestly wish they used more. The metal cap lets you sink to the bottom of the water and quickly reach the cage, but without the invisibility cap, you can't get inside. Alternatively, the invisibility cap lets you go through the cage, but you can't reach it before the cap expires without using the metal cap. Wait, you can just get this with the invisibility cap by swimming without the metal cap?
Why must you fail me so often?
Alright, so that's pretty disappointing. They definitely could have made both required, but whatever, I guess. Unlike the Jetstream stars, I do still like the idea behind this one enough to put it up into C tier. But man, I hate that the 1-star combining caps in this game just didn't do anything with it. Star number 7, 100 coins. Remember when I said in Jolly Roger Bay's section that the 100 coin star could get worse? It got worse. Dar Docks has the second least amount of coins of any stage in the game with 106, a whopping 2 more than Jolly Roger Bay. You are now able to miss one of the blue coins, I guess, but it's best to just collect them all because getting the coins here is not fun, especially when it gets down to the wire. That's for a few different reasons. For starters, we're still in water and there is a lot of swimming. You have to try and make sure to get every nook and cranny of the map, or you may have to try and swim back to the other side through the tunnel and pick up coins you missed. Then you also have to consider that a large chunk of this level's coins are up with the poles, so if you didn't do these 2 stars at the same time, you have to once again wait on the poles for a while. Now, if all that wasn't enough, there are 3 sets of coins that I think ruin this star even more. The first is a line of coins right at the start, and it's in a spot where players are incredibly unlikely to look at. They're placed along a slope at the top of the water, which is somewhere you never even have to go close to while collecting everything else in this level. On top of that, Mario 64 has terrible draw distance for coins. Even if you are looking directly at the spot that would have them, you sometimes have to get close enough for them to visually appear, so you may look at the slope but be too far away to see the coins. That's especially worsened in Dire Docks due to the water adding your elevation into that mix. This draw distance is also what makes this ring of coins so bad for me. The submarine area is so open that you can see pretty much all of it at once. That would leave most people to believe there are no coins here since you can't see them, but actually there is one hidden ring on the ocean floor that you need to get super close to in order to see. What's worse is that this is made up of 8 coins, meaning it's required to collect the star. At least the first line was only 5, so you could theoretically miss it. That's also the case for the last line I want to highlight, and of the 3 it's probably the least bad, but I still hate it. It's right next to this really ominous hole in the wall. Wait, what? So if you get too close to this thing, it will suck you in and throw you outside of the castle. That not only makes you lose all of the progress, but it forces you to walk back down to Dire Docks. There's no telling beforehand that this thing will do that, so putting a line of coins here is kind of evil. So yeah, I do not like this 100 coin star. While Dire Docks may have 2 more coins than Jolly Roger Bay, at least that stage was more confined, so it was easier to find every coin. Dire Docks is far too open with too many obscure sets of coins and even a lot of waiting. So I think this clearly deserves to be at the bottom of the list in F tier. So with all that said, which of these do I think is the best water level in Mario 64? Neither, it's Wet Dry World. But if I were to choose, I think I gotta go Jolly Roger Bay. Its aesthetic is a bit nicer to me, and I think in general its stars are better too. However, I will say that I think both do a good job justifying their individual existences. There are a few overlaps of course, but these two are quite different outside of their water gimmicks. That being said though, I still don't love either of these stages. What can I say, water is just not my favorite thing. I mean, we only had 1 star today that even made it to A tier. So I think for the Mario 64 level by level tier list, both of these land in D tier. Not F because they at least have some enjoyable aspects on like Rainbow Ride, but compared to every other stage in the game, they're certainly on the weaker end. But anyways, that's it for this video. Do you love watching Mario drown and hate me for disliking these levels so much? Let me know in the comments. I quite enjoyed doing this comparison video, so I hope it does well enough so I can make the snow one sometime soon. But anyways, I gotta get back to working on this special, so dry bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.